You know, to me, it's either yellow or orange. And then the next thing that would throw me over probably would be, you know, the way we used to calculate that from the very beginning in terms of looking at the data from the Friday back to the previous Saturday and then over that 2-week period. That was up slightly, up 50, okay? So, you know, I could go yellow or orange on that particular one. And the only reason I say orange perhaps, that I would lean more that way would be because we were up in cases on the Harvey County side. But honestly, I hate putting writing this, I almost said it's a coin flip. We have just as good a luck tossing a coin on this one based upon how we do that. Percent positive, that is an orange, but boy, it's 10.04%. That's pretty darn good. It's come down tremendously over the course of the last month. You know, we thought we'd have that that spike from Thanksgiving. If we would have had that, we probably would have seen it around right now, probably over the course of the last week. So we're thinking if that pattern holds, that's a real positive. Staff attendance, that was in orange. Student attendance, we were actually in green as it relates to that. And once again, that is including the active cases. So when you average those two together, that's yellow. The 2-week cumulative incidence rate, the number per 100,000, or per 100,000, pardon me, that's 827. That's still way above the 150, which puts it in red. And once again, our local referring hospital capacities are red on both the state, and I would also consider that on the Harvey County side as well, because that's what it shows on the dashboard. So when you look at the total over the 3 criteria, 2 yellow and 1 orange, or 1 yellow and 2 orange. And that's where we're right kind of in that middle ground right there in terms of a recommendation. The nice thing about that this week is that with respect to activities, depending upon what we decide or what you guys vote on to do with the adjustments from FAScia in terms of allowing those participants, that's the only thing that it would have an impact on either way. So when you look at the 5 criteria, 2 red, 1 yellow, and 2 orange, or 2 yellow and 1 orange, once again, go back to something like that. Total number of active cases this week, 314, compared to 377. So the number of active cases, according to the Harvey County site, is also down. We looked at quarantine students. This would have been on Friday. I usually don't put the quarantine students numbers down for the day because it's going to be accurate tomorrow rather than today based upon the information they get. 164 kids. We had 131 last week. We had 32 staff, had 31 last week. So we were setting Friday 130 some before we had some issues with an athletic team, where a lot of them had to quarantine based upon contact with an individual at the game last week. Active case counts, and that'll have changed even since this morning. I had 17, 12 students and 5 staff. That's a little different now. And then last week at this time we had 19, 11 students and 8 staff. So that's where we are with gating this week. So if the trend holds, we should have, you know, if we were to have school next week, it should be would probably be a yellow if the percent positive continues its trend. If it continues its trend. And somebody had asked me what the quarantine numbers were and the active case numbers were at the high school and then at Chisholm. And at the high school, I'm considering both Opportunity Academy and Newton High today, or actually Friday, we had 81 quarantine, and we had 6 at Chisholm. We had 7 active cases at the high school student, and then 0 at Chisholm. Those were all student counts. For staff, we had, in terms of quarantine, 5 high school staff, 5 high school staff. Let me just look, I want to get that right. That doesn't look right for some reason. It looked perfect when I wrote it a few minutes ago. Oh, yes, quarantine 5, 0 active cases. Quarantine at Chisholm 3, 1 active case. And once again, the active case count tonight is 12 for staff. So, 5. Well, overall, the active case count is, like I said, that changed from the time that I printed this up, or that I made this up this afternoon at like at 2 o'clock. Those numbers are just real fluid, and I've always got an accurate count right here. So every time that whenever I draw them, it's accurate at that time.
Is this the number you gave us now accurate at this time, or when this was?
That was accurate. Well, the quarantine numbers for the high school was, or for the students, was as of Friday. Because to give you those today, it wouldn't be accurate. It wouldn't be accurate.
So then we should look at the 8 staff cases rather than the 12 that you said?
Well, I had 5 on the active up there. Is what I had, you know what I mean? Yeah. Today, when I printed that off today at 12, or at 12:14, when I printed that off, those were the active case counts at that time. And it's changed some since then. That's the crazy thing about this, is nothing is ever static with this. Right now, the active case count overall is 7, okay? And at that time this afternoon, it was 5. So we've added 2 since that time. But you just wanted high school and Chisholm, so that's.
So the new number, most accurate numbers don't include Chisholm and the high school?
Well, they include Chisholm in the high school, yes.
Okay.
So the things to discuss here, originally I thought what we should do is wait till, maybe the week of the 28th or something, to have a decision about coming back after the break. Some of the input that I've received, and also just thinking about that, if I were a staff member or a parent, it sure would be nice before I go on break, to determine what we're going to be like when we come back from break. Some of the things that I think we have to be mindful of is that when you look at the predictions, they don't predict a decrease, but also we haven't seen that huge spike in cases or the percent positive since Thanksgiving either, all right? So, to make it based upon the current status for a couple-week period of time, I don't think is unreasonable. And then on that 11th of January, when we have our next meeting, we could then decide for another 2 to 3 week period of time in terms of the mode of operation. I think that's a pretty reasonable thing to do. It would help staff, it would help parents and students too.
Just to clarify on the date, so are you recommending that we approve a mode through the 15th of January?
That would be accurate,
Okay.
yes. Because that would give us then that December 11th to have that announcement for the addition.
Okay.
And it also gives us some time, because what I want to do is, over the course of the last week and a half, the Kansas State Department of Education has gotten that original gating criteria committee and group back together, which includes a bunch of different health professionals, that actually put this gating criteria up together in the first place. And they looked at some of the data associated with disease transmission at different levels. You get 10 or over in terms of age, that's when you have the more adult-like disease transmission. You get at that elementary level, it's not that there isn't any transmission, it's just that rate of the transmission is so much lower, number one. Number two, the things that we're doing in schools, we are mitigating that risk at a higher rate. So at the Kansas State Board of Education meeting last week, those were some of the things that adjusted criteria was produced, in which they would have elementary students on campus all the way throughout the modes, even in red. Okay, so what I would like to do is get that gating committee together a couple of times between now and that 11th of January to adjust locally, because we're trying to pilot some things. One of the options they talked about at that elementary level, because we've talked about before, we cannot socially distance in those elementary classrooms. It just is not really possible with the model that we currently have. We also are kind of in a flow in terms of us being able to do that, right? To totally change that model would cause a lot of heartache and headache on the part of a lot of people. people fear change, I think, and they fear that lack of the known. So what I'd like to do is get that committee together to come up with some suggestions. We've also talked about a little bit of trying to figure out ways to get our high school kids and our middle school kids on campus as well. So I'd like to be able to have some time to work with that committee, come up with those suggestions, reach out to the medical professionals, get their opinions, including the Harvard County Health Department, and then after the break, get that group again, bring back those recommendations, and then have something to present to you folks on that 11th.
So what you want from us right now is an approval of the gating criteria.
No, you don't really have to, because I'm the one that like on the Mondays for the week. I just wanted to tell you what the gating criteria was or what the stuff is. Right now, depending upon what we do with the Acacia stuff, that's the only thing that would have an impact this week, because we have some activities, and it's whether or not you would want to just adjust the gating criteria to reflect the new Acacia guidance, and also what color you would want that to be enacted up through. So my recommendation, and if you guys remember, the Acacia met last week, and they approved allowing 2 parents per spectator, not spectator, 2 parents per participant, okay? And they also came out with some criteria that clarified what that meant, and it didn't mean board members, so you guys are left out of the loop, okay? So you guys were left out of the loop unless you've got a kid involved in the competition. They came out with an additional clarifying piece this week, or today, and that's if you have an infant child, because it doesn't include your kids if you're a parent. But if you have an infant child, you could bring the infant child, and I obviously didn't include that because I didn't have it until late, all right? So, my recommendation would be to approve the Acacia guidance in terms of allowing spectators up through yellow, limiting the capacity only based upon the venue that we have going on. For example, like tonight at swimming, we couldn't have had 2 parents and be able to socially distance. We might have a wrestling tournament, that big tournament, the Tournament of Champions, that may be another one of those where we may be only based upon the venue size, allow 2 per participant. So that's the thing that I'll need from you guys tonight. And then when you approve or disapprove that, then that will allow me to tell those activities what they will be doing for the rest of the week in terms of their current participation. Does that make sense?
One question for you, you said up through yellow, do you mean yellow or orange for Acacia?
I mean orange, I meant orange, I meant up through orange. I think it's okay, once again, the venue needs to dictate that, and we've got to leave that up to our AD and principals to make those determinations. But up through orange, I didn't mean up through orange, I think I might have said yellow.
And Fred, you and I talked about this weekend, with fine arts performances. Clearly, they're not under Acacia guidelines. I personally would like to see us, if we're opening this up for athletics and Acacia activities, as long as the facilities allow for social distancing and all those mitigation practices to take place, I would like that to include our fine arts performances, if possible.
I agree. So I have a little bit of a sample motion there, move to approve the Acacia guidance in relation to spectator allowance. We should probably say up through, oh, it does say up through the orange modes of learning. And if you want to include in there, well, we just said events hosted by USD 373, so I think that would also take into account those other events you're referring to.
So then the language on our little gating criteria chart, it would just look exactly the same under orange that it does in green and yellow as far as the spectators?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then as far as determining the mode for the start after Christmas break, it seems like the new gating criteria that's going to come out is encouraging more on-site. I would lean towards maybe at least like the modified ones that we did before. If there's more push to have K-4 in the schools and there's low transmission, then I would be in favor of something like the modified orange. And then, I don't know what anybody else thinks about that. What we had, it was K-4 on site, 5 to 8 was hybrid, and 7 to 12 still remote. I mean, it's kind of hard. I know it's convenient for a lot of people, but we're projecting, almost a month and a half ahead well, I guess just a full month ahead, based off the numbers, what they are right now, we have no idea what the numbers are gonna do, so. But we can always have a special meeting, we can come back if we saw that there was a significant downward trend, but as of right now, if the push is for more on-site, I'd be comfortable there. I mean, and really, based off today's numbers, you could really argue that we're yellow, and you could just go through yellow, but.
It's close. I mean, it really is. It really is close. I mean,
Well, let's talk about this for a minute. I was able to attend that KSAB, luncheon last week. Takeaway I got from that was that it's going to be, these pediatricians said it's going to be impossible to prevent all cases from entering the building.
absolutely.
Also, the goal was to appropriately look at the risk strategies in the transmission, risk versus benefit. And I think we have a tremendous risk for all of our students, especially the middle school to high school, of not being in the building. So when I went back and looked at the numbers from November 6th, we have a total staff and student was 43 positive cases for the entire district. Then the 11-13, it was 26. 11-20, 26 total. 11-30, 12. 12-2, 16. 12-8 was 12, and then 12-4 was 17. So maybe we need to have a discussion about, I don't want to make it seem like I'm saying there's not a risk, because there is, but these numbers to me indicate that there's not a high impact in our buildings of transmitting. We're still getting cases when our kids aren't in the building at middle school and high school level. So I would like for us to talk about getting those kids also back in the building, because we're struggling. Mentally, we're struggling. I'm sure you guys have all heard and seen it in your households, but it's a big concern, big concern with the anxiety, the overwhelmingness, the not sleeping, the not eating. Today, we heard from a parent that was very heartbreaking to hear what she said in that Senate meeting today. And that's just one parent coming forward. How many more other kids are feeling that same thing? So I think we definitely need to be looking at getting these kids back on site.
Do not disagree. The thing that also those medical professionals said last week was that transmission is more adult-like from ages 10 on up. And so that's one of the reasons why those cases are staying fairly low. They're not in proximity to one another at that secondary level. So, you know, it's 6 in one, half a dozen in the other. They still are going out in our socializing. We still have a lot of things coming from the outside in, but not internal
I
transmission.
know, I think their mental health is more at risk than for not being in school.
I think everyone's mental health is at risk. We're in the middle of a pandemic and
I
it's
know,
whatever now.
But we're talking about young kids who are not mentally developed in their brains to associate that. These high school kids, and I'm sure the Chisholm kids, are all struggling for not being in the building. We've got to find a way to get them back in the building.
One of the
They
reasons,
want to go back, they want
they
to
do.
go back. They don't like remote, and there's just gonna be a lot of ramifications the longer we stay in remote.
when I met
Not
with
just
that,
academically.
when I met with that principals group last week with Mr. Smith, you know, I'd asked those kids, you know, how many of you a year ago, if I'd have said you were gonna be out of school for like 2 months essentially, would have been real happy, and their hands all went up, and how many of you wanna come to school now? They all wanna be there. One of their ideas was, let's all get there 1 day a week, we just all show up on campus. I'm going, no, let's not do that, right? Cause that goes against, but yeah, they wanna be there. And that's another reason to try to get that committee back together and then run it through those medical professionals, in my opinion, especially at that age level where we know transmission is more adult-like, to where our professionals, medical professionals support something like that.
Well, and I don't know, I just have really, really big concerns for those group of kids. I was doing some research this afternoon, and there's a lot of developmental, areas that are declining because of isolation. Isolation and, you know, you worry, you're more fearful when you're isolated, you have changes in eating and sleeping patterns, you have difficulty sleeping, concentrating, worse with chronic health problems, and mental health. And one of that, is the isolation, along with Zoom fatigue. There is a thing called Zoom fatigue. And how, I think all of us adults can relate to that with the Zoom meetings. I just feel like our kids are breaking down and are breaking down fast.
So I want to echo some of that, Melissa, because I've gotten 2 therapists that I've talked to in our community that deal with many of our kids in different classes along, and they're saying whatever you guys can do to get these kids in the building and not socialized. And I've got some parents too, but when the therapist talked to me, one in particular, last week, I think it was Thursday or Friday, we had a pretty decent 20-minute phone call, and they were telling me, you know, they couldn't tell me names, of course, but they were giving me a general idea of what they were hearing from these children. And it's getting scary for some of these kids, and I mean literally scary. So what's coming out of all of the backlog of what's going on in our society today, and they're equating it to they just want to come to school, be with their friends, and, you know, do activities. And some of these kids aren't involved in extracurricular activities, which makes it hard, right, to get them any other kind of social connection. And I'm not sure if there's something we can do out in the community, but is that going to be any better? And is that going to cause other issues, right? Because if they're connecting outside of our buildings, are we still gonna have problems? The answer is yes, right? And so I don't have the right answer, but I am very concerned, Melissa, I'll piggyback off of what you said, and figuring out how we can make that happen.
Well, and all of those things, raise the risk of suicide, in kids, isolation, depression, anxiety, all of those things are factors, and I just wanna make sure we don't get to a point to where our kids are feeling really hit home with me today. So I wanna push for getting our kids back in the building.
And I just want to say this, I agree with you 110%. I'm seeing it in my own household, and it's happening more in my high school than it is my elementary. But she's got her own little setup, she's got her cell phone here, and she's got her computer going here, and she's got 16 conversations going, so she's more adept at that socialization piece, and the high school is not. And so, I know what there's more pieces of this puzzle than COVID. And so we can't just zero in on COVID. The kids aren't, I mean, the transmission within the schools is fairly low. And, is the mask work or it don't? So I don't get it. If we got masks on, I still don't get if I've got masks on the whole time, well, how am I close contact if somebody's got a mask on? It doesn't make sense. It does not make sense. Goalposts keep moving, and, we gotta stop this. So, I don't know, that's, I wanna see us get these kids in school. And I'm not trying to make it, I'm not trying to change the gating criteria and make an outcome. I'm seeing what's happening, and it's not good. And so we've got to we gotta change some things, because it's not working at all.
Go ahead. I can't tell if people are talking, who raised hands, I can't see mouths, I can't tell.
Luke's on duty, Luke's on duty.
I see it, was that you or your walkie-talkie, I don't know. Yes, echo a lot of things. On the KASB call, one of the doctors said, today's Monday, so it was last week, I lose track of my weeks. She had a patient in the hospital that day, 15-year-old with a drug overdose. Today, we heard of a very brave person who spoke up about a student who was feeling suicidal. I know from personal experience, because I have lost a best friend to this, it's usually the last one you expect. You don't typically hear about it ahead of time. So when you hear about these things, there's more out there that we don't know about. I agree, COVID is not the only thing to be concerned about right now. That doesn't mean it's not real, that doesn't mean it's not important. I know a lot of people, and Mallory starts talking, so I thought maybe tonight, instead of Mallory talking, Mallory would read a little bit, from people who are far higher up than I am in their areas. This is from the Coronavirus Task Force press briefing from November 19th. And it's from two doctors. Let's begin with Dr. Redfield. I think this beginning sentence is so important. We need to follow the data. We should be making data-driven decisions when we talk about what we're doing for institutions or what we're doing for commercial closures. For example, as was mentioned last spring, CDC did not recommend school closures, nor did we recommend their closures today. I will say back in the spring there was limited data. Today there's extensive data that we have. We've gathered over the last 2 or 3 months to confirm that K-12 schools can operate face-to-face learning, and they can do it safely and they can do it responsibly. The infections that we've identified in schools when they've been evaluated were not acquired in schools. They were actually acquired in the community and in the household. Today, as Dr. Burke said, our big threat for transmission is not the public square. It's not inter-school transmission. The truth is, for kids K-12, one of the safest places they can be from our perspective is to remain in school. And it's really important that, following the data, making sure we don't make emotional decisions about what to close and what not to close. And I'm here to say clearly, the data strongly supports that K-12 schools, as well as institutes of higher learning, really are not where we're having our challenges. And it would be counterproductive from my point of view, from a public health point of view, just in containing the epidemic, if there was an emotional response to say, let's close the schools. I really support using the data to make decisions in the communities, particularly as it relates to K-12 and institutes of higher learning. Then it moves on to Dr. McCants-Katz. She is the Assistant Secretary for Mental Health and Substance Use. I know in our district we've talked extensively and listened to multiple reports from building leadership who are doing a fantastic job prior to COVID, especially with being trauma aware and working with students. We know there's a significant amount of trauma, and we have phenomenal staff that are helping our kiddos. So I think this is a really valuable piece to consider. Individuals across our country are living with stress that they have likely never experienced. I often think about this in the context of our country's children. I lead the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, which is the only federal agency whose primary charge is addressing mental and substance use disorders across the country. Where better to start addressing this challenge than with our nation's young people? Protecting and also fostering the social and emotional well-being of children is critical, not only to their own development, but also to the development of healthy families, communities, and a healthy and productive society. The work that schools and school personnel do daily is valuable beyond any words I can deliver. We know that in addition to education, schools provide our children a profound sense of security and stability. The structure and safety of schools are integral to our children's whole health. The role of the school cannot be overstated. We know that over 7.4 million children in this country live with serious emotional disturbances, and over 60% receive services from the school system. We know that children with disabilities are losing ground with the closure of school. We know that millions of children across the country are experiencing child abuse and neglect that goes undetected due to lack of contact with school personnel who serve as mandatory reporters. We must work together to address these issues. I believe strongly that we need schools to open in communities whose data indicate it's safe to do so. I want to conclude by saying that the physical effects of coronavirus are very real, and this virus has brought along stress, anxiety, and fear that many have never felt before. COVID-19 has brought devastating loss of life to families across the nation. In addition to those who have lost lives to the infection itself, there are those of you who have what I call COVID-related deaths in your family. These are not deaths by infection, but death by suicide or death by drug overdose during this pandemic. Please know that we have not forgotten your loss. Your loss is great. And my job is to do all I can to prevent additional families from experiencing that loss. So in listening to these medical professionals and on a national level, on a state level, and knowing that communities look so very different from state to state, county to county, I think it's important that we take the information from national, state levels, and then also our local health department, who's been very good about working with us and being very open about that. I think it's important that we do follow data, we do follow numbers. That's what we have been encouraged very loudly to do since the beginning. Follow the data, follow the science, follow the numbers. So as we look at these numbers today, it seems that the area where there's a little gray is between the trends. And I know when you started calculating this at the beginning, I believe that was before the state even had their website up.
Yes.
So thank you for that. That took a lot of work to figure out how to get to a number, basically starting from scratch, because the state wasn't putting anything out there. I noticed that the days that you used then are different than the days that the state uses now to calculate their numbers.
That's accurate, but it's consistent with what we had used from the very beginning. I
Sure.
wanted to be consistent
Yes.
when we did that.
Yes, so your method has totally been consistent, but when we compare the state data week by week and the county data week by week, it's a little off, just a couple of days of how it's gonna work out. And we know that numbers change daily. So since the health department on their dashboard is using the KDAG numbers to update percent positive and all of that, I feel like we should maybe look at the state numbers across the board and kind of compare where are we at with that, because that's where the health department is pulling a lot of their numbers from to update our dashboard. So if we were to look at the trend from the state side in those numbers, that would be in the yellow, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, you could say yellow, you could also, I'd lean yellow with that, I really would. You gotta remember, the week before, the number was up, okay, and then it was down this last week, so, yeah, I'd lean yellow on that, because, it's down 89 cases the week of 12/6 from the week of 11/29. So I would lean yellow on that value there. It's not down, both weeks are not down. I would lean orange if it were, this week was up, the prior week was down.
And I understand and can value the opinions of people who want a decision tonight for what they're going to come back to. I definitely see the pros of having that, but that also comes with using our information that we have tonight to make a decision for a month out. So it's a trade-off. Do we make a decision now using these numbers and have that in place, or wait and see what numbers are like in 2 weeks? It's almost kind of a trade-off, right? Yes? Am I
Oh, absolutely.
looking at that right?
I'm also, logistically, I'm thinking it on the part of students, parents, and staff, in terms of staff that have this week to get ready then for when they come back 2
Sure.
weeks from now.
And that is a huge, huge benefit.
It is a
yes.
big,
Yeah, they deserve a break too.
Wow.
They deserve a break during the holidays to not have to redo their plans last minute.
Well, if we have to have a special meeting, somewhere in between there, what's the difference if something has changed and then they have to redo their plans?
that's only if the wheels fall off one way or the other, is that what you're saying? Yeah.
And I'm not opposed to making a decision tonight, but with that, if we're going to make a decision, we'll make it on the numbers that we have now, not on what we think will happen, a prediction, because our predictions could go either way at any time in this. So I'm not opposed to making one tonight, but that would mean that we use the numbers we have in front of us now.
Okay,
Are we gonna motion
so yeah, I'll entertain a motion.
up to the 15th, or what does that need to look like?
What, to the
Yeah, up to the
Fourth
15th.
to the 15th, the 4th to the 15th,
So it would be the 2 weeks we return, so the 4th through the 15th.
4th through the 15th. So I'll take a shot, and if you don't like it, then we can talk about it. I motion to approve the yellow mode of learning from the 4th to the 15th.
Second.
Moved in second, any discussion?
Yeah, I just feel like, we're right in the middle of the holidays. Fortunately, we think that Thanksgiving hasn't provided a spike. Let's hope that Christmas also doesn't provide a spike, but I think it's really risky to make a big change like this right in the middle of potentially the worst time for this. I think we should stick with Fred's recommendation of orange through the 15th, provide some consistency for a little while until we have time to reevaluate the gating criteria after the holidays, like Fred was talking about, how we discussed. I just don't think right now is a good time to make a drastic change. There's too many moving parts.
So this motion does not include any change to the gating criteria, and based on the numbers we have today, not a prediction,
That's orange.
if we use the state trend that is a yellow, which would make 2 yellows and 1 orange, which would equal a
That's
yellow.
yellow, that's yellow.
So our numbers do lead to yellow if we go by the numbers we have today.
And it doesn't.
If you go by the state numbers, yeah, sure.
So the Harvey County Health Department is pulling from the state.
Now, one thing to consider though too is if our percent positive like went above 15 or something like that on that week of the 28th, we could call a special board meeting and then go to orange.
Which we would do anyway if the wheels fall off at any point in time in any of this. We would make a quick change if we needed to.
I mean, it's like all the data you guys are talking about, I mean, it just shows that the school is a safe place. I mean, it's probably, you know, like the doctor that you were quoting, I mean, probably one of the safest places they can be. And I agree with you 100%, Matt, that, you know, we were beat over the head all summer with how great 2 people wearing a mask was gonna work. You know, if we're both wearing a mask, I mean, the chance of transmission is low, and then there's all this data that shows the chance of transmission is low with kids anyway, so.
Well, and right now,
And the mental health aspect that you mentioned, there is a serious risk there. I mean, you know, I looked at this, probably in the spring, you know, that last year there's about 100 kids under the age of 25 that committed suicide. And you look at the deaths from coronavirus, it's at like 5 between the age of 18 and 25. So, I mean, if we're gonna do something that can have a serious effect on the mental health of our students, you know, that just has to be taken into consideration. So, you think about the mental health, you think about the lack of transmission in the schools, you think about the fact that, you know, we're getting a notification from the high school every other day, and we've been remote for over a month. They're getting it from outside places. They're not, I don't think there was ever clear evidence that they were getting it in the school, so.
well, and right now, we have 7 in the high school students
And we've been
0
remote
staff.
for how long? So,
The only thing to keep in mind though, and I want to be real clear about this, with Christmas break, they're not going to be in our campuses for 2 weeks. They are going to be mixing out the community. They could bring it back and pass it on to staff at that secondary level. I mean, that's my concern. Pardon?
They can't staff.
Oh, exactly. It can go all ways, but our staff are the ones that are more at risk, frankly. You
Yeah.
know, I mean, that's the only thing, as you consider all of this, what's working is working well in schools, but they won't be in schools for that 2-week period of time. And that's the only thing that I would really suggest is that if on that week of the 28th, we saw that percent positive go way up, you know, that we reassemble and we reevaluate that and go at least to orange. If the percent positive was up, if our number of cases was up, if those other criteria, the attendance is gonna be a wash probably. But those other 2 values could go up. So I think we could live with that, but you have to, those are things that I really think we have to take into heart. It's working in the schools because, number one, those high school kids aren't here. But the
Yeah.
mitigation factors that we have in place at that elementary level, they are working. They're not going to be there. They're going to be other places.
I hear you guys when you're saying we've been remote for however many weeks now and we're still having cases. What would the numbers be if we weren't remote? Like, you can't prove something isn't helping when you don't see the cause. Like, I just think we really need to like hold on, reevaluate the gating criteria at the end of the year, and I mean, one thing I wanted to ask about, and I don't have all the numbers written down from when we started this, but is this the first time we've been orange for staff attendance? I don't remember seeing,
No, I don't think so. I think we were at another time.
that's something that really, I understand, like, little kids doesn't transmit as well, or as bad, and, but we got an email from a teacher today from the elementary level, talking about how they're a young, healthy teacher, and this took them out for weeks. I mean, we have to think about our staff too, and I just think with the stress that's going on right now, the holidays that we're about to have, people are going to mix and mingle, kids are going to mix and mingle during the break. I just think it's irresponsible of us to change to a less restrictive mode for a month away.
So I hear what you're saying.
And sending that signal out to the community that everything's fine, kids are okay.
Kids are not
I
okay.
hear what you're saying, and,
You're right, they're not.
I,
Well, same thing, go back to school kind of signals that.
once again, nobody is proposing any change to the gating criteria at this point. And there are a lot of pieces, like a number of board members have talked about, it's not just COVID, there's mental health, and there's mental health of staff, which, yes, I think we've been, trying to be mindful of. We understand, as, you know, as I read and we've acknowledged, COVID is real, the virus is real. It has a devastating effect on a number of people. I don't think any of us are trying to discount that, but if we look at our numbers tonight, and we're asked to look at numbers,
It's orange.
when you look at the state numbers,
Yeah, I'll look at the
it
state numbers.
is yellow.
So,
Okay,
yellow
hold on.
and orange
This is
together.
already a motion. And
All right,
we're
we-
second.
Okay, we're discussing, so let's almost second it and vote,
It
and
was
go ahead.
seconded,
I second it.
All right.
All right, let's, I'll call the motion. All right, all those in favor of the motion on the table? Opposed? Okay. So 5-2. It passes. Okay.
I just want our kids to be in the building. That's why I voted no.
So you want us to agree?
Go on, side over here.
And then you need another motion as far as?
For the K-shift.
K-shift?
Yeah, for the K-shift.
And basically you want us to follow K-shift up through Orange?
Yeah, I've got a,
It's in here.
It's in here?
I'll
Okay.
do it.
All right.
I move to approve the Acacia guidance in relation to spectator allowance at events hosted by USD 373 with consideration needed to be allowed for certain activities based upon capacity limitations up through the orange mode of learning.
Second.
Okay. Moving second, any discussion on the K-shift thing? All those in favor? 7-0?
the only other thing, we'll have some second semester adjustments we'll bring to you, the 11th. Some of them might include taking some of our elementary staff that are in, remote right now. We're having more students come back, so we're gonna try to figure out a decent way to do that, to where it's least disruptive as possible, which means it'll be disruptive, and not all people will be happy based upon that, but we've got to figure out ways to continue to balance, what we're doing there. I still plan to get that gating criteria together, because once again, I'd like to look at adjusting that to where we can get our high school students and our middle school students on for sure more. I want to make sure that we do that with the recommendation of experts. If you guys are okay with that, I'll get that group together. and
We
bring those
also need to
recommendations to you.
consider when semester changes, because the high school kids and the Chisholm kids will be changing teachers.
Absolutely.
So to start them in remote for a whole new, class schedule and teacher schedule,
Be pretty rugged.
yeah,
It'd be pretty rugged.
when we're already seeing issues.
And hopefully if our numbers keep, like I said, I thought we would see the November spike or the Thanksgiving spike already show. And that means that people are either taking this seriously, we're getting real lucky, or whatever we're doing doesn't matter, right? So there's all kinds of things that are taking
Well,
place.
yeah, but, and like you said earlier, the numbers, there's only 7 between Chisholm and the high school of positive kids, and 1 with staff between the two buildings.
But you do have to recognize too, if they're not there, I mean, you won't have the transmission. So, it just,
I still think it's low.
oh, it is
Sure
low.
they don't, sure those 7 people don't.
But the one thing I will go back to is, you know, there was a parent that was lost recently because of complications due to COVID. I mean, so, none of you, and I know none of you discount any of that either. It's like, we just have to make a decision and we all have to live with it and go forward. So it's just so hard to make these because in listening to that same parent this afternoon, it breaks your heart. It just breaks your heart to hear that. You know, and we just gotta figure out ways to try to get them on campus as much as we can, as safe.
I just wish that we could have a little more compassion for the kids in the school and not being there, and how much they're struggling not being there.
I think we've got a lot of compassion. We'll get through this.
I have a quick question.
Yes.
I know that teachers are listed in the kind of that next phase of vaccinations, so it's nursing homes, elderly, frontline healthcare workers, and then the next group, teachers were listed, or school staff members. Have you been given any sort of a timeline on when they can expect that? I mean, that's gonna be a game changer.
That would be tremendously helpful.
Looking forward to that.
Quick question for you, I'm in class again, I'll just raise my hand. You said, a number of students wanting to move from remote to on-site. Do you have some sort of number, ballpark, what we're looking at with that?
Sheila might, but I don't off the top of my head, no, because we've been discussing that. We have, and it's like at that elementary level, for example, it's scattered throughout that are coming back into different
Sure.
buildings. So what we're looking at is like, you know, what's the number that would require us or a need to bring a staff member back?
So do you have it broken down by any chance by kind of elementary, middle, high school levels of that move?
We're just looking at elementary. Right now, 5 and 6, I don't think we had enough 5 and 6 coming back.
They've kind of been trickling in throughout, correct?
Well, but there's just not enough to bring any one of those 4 teachers back that we have in 5 and 6.
And I guess I'm asking from a student number standpoint, do we have a number of people that are wanting to try to go from remote to the flexible?
I think around 30% of those, Sheila, was that about right?
Yeah, just because we were looking at that this afternoon, Mallory, the K-4, I know there were about 50 students,
Okay.
pre-K-4, sorry.
And don't have any idea on the 5 through 12?
Not right in front of me, but I can look here maybe while we're still talking.
And 7 through 12 is a different critter, the way they had arranged their model. So we're focusing more on those staffing issues with 5 through, or with K through 4. You know, one of the things that the 7, especially the 9 through 12, I know that Mr. Smith, they're struggling with that from that scheduling perspective, is to try to offer all the courses that those remote students want. And there's gonna be some that we may not be able to offer. Just because if you've only got like 1 or 2 kids that wants this honors course, for example, it's hard to offer a section unless that can be taught concurrently with the in-person, and we don't necessarily have all the technology to do that well. So you'll hear some negative comments about that more than likely, because we won't be able to meet all those requests.
Our counselors, I was so impressed with them before school started. They are incredible at working through schedules and trying to make that work. I know they're working so hard every day, and that's definitely behind the scenes that a lot of people don't see or recognize, so I appreciate all their work for that.
Good times.
Ready for the next one? The gift request?
I move to approve gift requests as presented. We would like to thank the Knights of Columbus for their gift to the Harvey County Special Education Cooperative for a gift of $788.54 to be used for their Circle of Friends program. We would also like to thank an anonymous donor for their gift to Cooper Early Elementary Center for Dylan's gift cards in the value of $150. We'd like to thank Don Franzen family for their gift to Newton High School Sunshine Squad for a donation recognizing staff and students in the value of $200. And I'll go down the list here. We'd like to thank Hales Sales and Service, Roofing Services Unlimited, Dan Cycle, Fair Chiropractic, Bridges Incorporated, Axtel Eye Center, Steve Richards, and Barb McCall, all for their gifts of donations for the Railer Robotics for team travel and supplies.
Second.
Moved and seconded, all those in favor? 7-0. The next item, approved Board of Education audio visual upgrade. So Fred, I assume this will make it that much easier for our folks out there in TV land and watching.
We're sure hoping so. If you'll notice too, the office staff got the nice little linens around the tablecloth, so you, folks that, so when Luke is wearing his dress for next time, he doesn't have to worry about covering up, him wearing his kilt, I should say kilt. So, and Dave is the one, and Sam have been working on this particular AV thing. So I'll let Dave talk to you about that some.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to follow up a somber conversation when we're having regarding gating or some chipper news, but a little bit on the brighter side of things. There's several items in the new business section that I think are pretty positive and show us moving forward. One of them, not the least, being our AV ability to broadcast out. As you can see, as you guys probably know, your viewership is growing almost weekly in terms of people's interests, maybe a little bit of the topics, but also your stellar personalities. So we're happy that this is that this is taking off. But really, just to kind of, I wish I could talk a little bit more about what exactly it is you are going to see. But ultimately, what you're going to see in the end is a better broadcast. You're going to have microphones in front of you that you'll be able to push a button to speak or push a button to mute. And that way, the sound quality will be much better. In addition to that, you know, we're also working with the better cameras that are going to be showing a much better image. And so we're pleased with that. If you just looked on the big comparison, which I'll throw up real quick, it was a fairly easy selection process. And effectively, we had 3 companies in the running. We tried as much as we could to look towards local companies and at least companies within our region. In the end, we went with a company out of Illinois. But as you can see in the amounts of the bids, there was just such a great disparity that it made it fairly easy to select that bid. So we're looking forward to that. I don't have a set timeline of when exactly installation will occur, but we are on the docket. And probably the best news out of all of this, and for those listening and watching at home, is this is going to be a 0 item for our budget. So this expense is going to go through our Sparks related expenses, and so it should not cost the Harvey County taxpayer anything in the end.
Thank you for that. This has been a long time coming, and I know it's been a lot of work and headaches, so I really appreciate all the work you put into this.
Yeah, and Sam, I mean, I know she did a ton of groundwork. I just kind of picked up where she left off and tried to wrap this up, so.
See, I've hit a lot of roadblocks over the last year, so thank you.
Yep.
I move to approve the contract with CDW-G for the upgrade of the Board of Education meeting room audio visual needs.
Second.
Moved and seconded, any discussion? All those in favor? 7-0. Staff recognition. Fred, we got some good news.
This is another thing Dr. Decker was responsible for, so I'll let,
Well, yeah, and on this, I mean, I do want to give some shout out. Fred's always pretty modest, but he was definitely there pushing for this, as well as board member Buddy, who I believe this idea originated with. So some kudos all around to you guys. But we're excited that in the December paycheck, if approved by you all, there'll be a $150 payment going out to all of our staff that's on our payroll. That's going to be a sort of what we would like to say is just extra duty pay or recognition for the extra efforts they're doing, dealing with and implementing and operating in the COVID-19 environment. So it really is COVID related in the sense that it's saying, hey, if you're a teacher, we know that you spent extra time planning. If you're a facilities worker, if you're a maintenance worker, if you're a bus driver, your world changed a little bit when COVID-19 came into the picture and you had to do some things extra. Now, there is no way, and Fred and I talked about this, there's no way that we could truly compensate them for what that extra effort is, but we're hoping that $150 sends the message that we recognize it, and more importantly, the community recognizes it, and that we want to do something that denotes that. And so, yes, that $150 that we're looking for, that's going to be in that December paycheck, I think the total amount that's actually going to affect the budget here for the school district is $17,250, because roughly $90,000 of that money is again coming from Sparks and COVID relief. So a huge shout out to our friends in Harvey County and to Sparks in particular, who went ahead and said that, yes, they would support, this type of an expenditure falling within the Sparks realm, falling within the COVID-19 expenditure realm. And again, so that only leaves us with a $17,250 expense. So what the motion would be then there too is to take that $17,250 from our contingency reserve fund. But we're fairly confident, I'd like to promise it, but can't do anything like that in this world, but our intent, and I'm confident that at the end of the year with our cash balances, we'll be able to replenish that $17,250 back into the account and therefore again, leave us full.
I just want to take just a second and say, you know, when you gave our presentation about all of our dollars that we got, COVID-related dollars, it really just kind of hit me that, you know, we're talking about all these things we can spend that money on, because you got to get it spent by X date, and it was like, man, you know, we sit up here almost every meeting at board comments and talk about how much we appreciate our teachers and stuff like that, and it's like, we got to put our money where our mouth is. And it's really important that we don't just sit up here and talk about how much we appreciate you. We're willing to you know, get in our pockets and say, this is something. It's not huge, but maybe it'll help you, you know, buy a few more Christmas presents or whatever you need it for, help you pay some bills. But we absolutely are there to support you, even if you don't like the decisions we make every week, because these are hard choices and we're really trying to make the best choices for the whole. But I hope this helps you to see how much we do care.
I'll make a motion.
Okay,
We'll move to approve the staff recognition plan as presented.
Second.
moved and seconded. All those in favor? Let me know. Approval of the 2020-21 negotiated agreement between the Newton Education Association and USD 373 Board of Education.
The bargaining unit approved this, with 72.6% of the teachers voting. That would have been in November after our last IBD session. You all have information about what the terms of those, of what the contract changes are. The biggest changes over what we had initially had gone through were in, essentially, after this year, any changes like in PD, for example, there was 1 day of PD, 7 hours of PD that was switched to instructional time. There were 7 hours of family engagement from 28 to 21 hours switched to instructional time for next year. So none of the contract hours decreased for or after this year. We're essentially taking a couple of days off this year from the contract once again because we were only able to give Steph and Colin for our staff this year. We felt good about how we ended. It was a very difficult negotiation process. Once again, when you don't have dollars to give, it always makes it a little tougher. But our teachers did a nice job, and the team did a nice job on the negotiation side of that. So, unless you have any questions about any of it.
Anybody have any questions? Okay. I'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve the 2020-21 negotiated agreement between the Newton Education Association and the USD 373 Board of Education.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor? 7-0. Thank you, everybody that helped on that. The next item is the financial audit.
So this one here, again, just really good news, effectively, that I do have a copy of the audit within your material for you guys to look at. And if we want to, we can, again, talk about it at the next meeting, but I can paraphrase it. There's no findings from the internal audit, so we're really pleased with that. It's a good reflection of not only the staff here that's working on behalf of the district, but my predecessor, Matt Morford, keeping good accountability of what the expenses are and how we are, and put us in a good position financially. So again, no findings in the financial audit. We're happy to report that. And now we move on this week to our actual ASDE state audit. But this internal audit went through with flying colors.
Entertain a motion.
It's just for information. If you have any questions, get them to, Dr. Decker between now and the next board meeting. We'll approve it at the next board meeting.
Okay, thank you. Board organizational items?
That's just kind of an informational thing to where if you remember, they shifted the election cycle a couple years back, so you guys will vote on eternally electing Matt as your president, as Matt was saying to me earlier today. No, I'm just kidding.
No, I really, this is it. I really am. This is 2.5 years, too long of a 2.5 year term.
You call that a sentence, too, never you
Yes.
It's a monarchy now.
No.
You just go until you die.
I feel a lot of empathy for the queen right now.
So that's just a reminder that we'll do that at the 11th meeting.
All right. Building team reports, and we're at the end. Board comments. Unless I missed something. Andy?
Yeah,
Tough couple of few weeks.
thank you guys for the discussion. I'm gonna continue to dig into information to everybody out there. I know that there's people gonna be upset and not like what we're doing or what we've done, and there's some people gonna be super excited. But I do feel like this team is doing the best we can for what's in front of us, and I'm looking forward to continuously moving forward through this and doing the best we can to take care of each other. So appreciate you guys and your, stewardship and leadership of the community.
Was really happy that we were able to do something for our staff, so thank you for picking that up, Jennifer, and for ironing all that out, David. Teachers, honestly, staff, I mean, we couldn't thank them enough. I mean, it's a tough, it's been a horrible year, okay? But, yeah,
Don't sugarcoat it.
So, we kind of we all have to roll with the punches, so maybe after 2020, everybody's just a lot more resilient, and, we'll be tougher people for it. The other thing I was gonna say is, we're approving the yellow mode to start the year, and Fred, you're right, we don't know what everybody's gonna do during the break. And just wanna recommend to everybody out there, COVID came through my house, and it wasn't fun, and it wasn't a cakewalk. So, I just wanna tell everybody, I do believe that 2 people wearing a mask, it works, it reduces transmission by a lot. I just want you to take it seriously. If you can avoid it, I would avoid it. I would definitely avoid it. It's not fun. We had symptoms. It was not just a loss of sense of smell. There was a lot of other stuff that went through it. And it was pretty miserable. So take it seriously. It is killing people. If you can avoid transmitting or receiving COVID-19, it's going to be better for you and your family. So take it seriously, but again, I do believe that schools are a safe place because of the precautions that we're taking. I do think it is better for our kids' mental health to start moving towards getting them back on site, encouraging that as much as is safely possible. So.
Okay, thanks. Melissa?
I just want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas.
Alex?
Yeah, just echo some of the other statements. Thank you again to staff. I'm glad we were able to do something to show appreciation and recognition. There will never be enough money to pay everyone what they're worth and what we would love to do. That goes beyond schools, that goes into hospitals, doctors' offices. There just will never be enough. So thank you for all the work that's being done. I appreciate everyone who's chipping in and helping out. This is like Luke said, this is a horrible year, but there are good things coming from it. Sometimes it'll just take a while to see some of them. Once again, like Luke said as well, it's not easy. Clearly some things went well for our community over Thanksgiving. I'm hopeful that the same thing happens over the next few weeks, over Christmas and New Year's. So yeah, and like Andy said, thank you for the discussion. It's nice to have really open discussion. We might not always agree, but I feel like we try to be pretty respectful in our disagreement and do what's best for the kids with the information we have at the time. Thank you for letting me read and listening and not interrupting. Maybe if I read it from other people, it's not as bad as just me talking to myself. So yeah, thank you for your discussion tonight, and just openness, putting it all on the table to serve our kiddos.
Okay, on to me. So, like many of you, 2020 has brought lots of changes to my family as well. This summer, my husband and I made a difficult decision to change the educational setting of our children for the upcoming school year. As we moved through the first semester at their new school, we realized that that change would become a permanent one. And I have always felt that sitting up here is the responsibility of those who are 100% vested in this district. Therefore, I am resigning my seat on the board this evening. It has been my honor to serve the community. I stand by every vote that I've cast in the last 3 years, and I see 373 moving in a very positive direction. I want to thank everybody that I've served with at this table and in our district, and I just want to thank everyone for their ongoing commitment to our district.
Thank you.
Yep.
So, in front of you, you have kind of a go-by sheet that Tony prepared for us in anticipation for this. So, the first thing we would need to do to accept that resignation is to amend the agenda to allow that process to take place. So, if I could get a motion to amend the agenda to allow us to accept the resignation and to approve a resolution.
I move to amend the agenda to allow the exception of resignation.
Second.
All right, all those in favor? You can vote, Jim.
Do I still vote?
You're still here.
I wasn't sure when I officially was.
We'll let you.
Jennifer who?
Yeah, that's right. Delete from my contacts list. I'm sorry, I just kidding.
It's fine.
Okay, so, that passes 7-0 to amend the agenda. And now we need a motion to accept the resignation of Jennifer, effective immediately, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
I move to accept the resignation from Jennifer BOE effective immediately.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. All those in favor? I don't think you get to vote that one.
Okay.
6-0. All right, now we need to, the next thing is we have to approve this resolution, which allows us to publish this in the Kansan, correct? Jim? Is that right? So if someone would make a motion to approve the resolution 2020-12-14 as outlined in your handout.
So moved.
I think they want the resolution read.
Okay. Should I just read it on here?
Yep.
It's not on the computer. It'll be on the sheet.
And this one?
Yep.
Yeah.
But it says resolution 2020.
Okay, resolution 2020-12-14, whereas a vacancy exists in the membership of the board of Unified School District Number 373, Hardin County, Kansas, and whereas KSA 25-2022 authorizes the Board of Education to fill such vacancies no sooner than 15 days following publication of notice in the newspaper or in general circulation in the school district. Be it resolved that the clerk of the Board of Education, Unified School District 373, Hardin County, Kansas, shall cause such notice to be published in the New Kansas.
Second.
Moved and seconded, all those in favor? 6-0. And then, I just need to know from the board if it's acceptable to proceed, with the process, everybody like we did last time, with taking, people with their applications, they send them to Joni, right, is that what we did with them? They gave them to Joni, and then Joni gave them out to each of us. Is that acceptable?
Do we need to do a new round, or can we contact some of the people that?
You can contact them, you can let them know. I don't want to just limit it to those people. There might be people that want to apply that didn't. There may be people on that list that aren't interested in that. COVID 2020 may have changed their mind.
They marked all the meetings to July, right?
Yeah, so,
I'm in favor of that, and if there are people from the previous list, Joni, can you just copy and paste their application back in so they don't have to rewrite anything?
Sure, yes. Yeah, they answered two questions, why do you want to run on the school board, and what you think you would bring to the
Yeah, that's fine.
board. So we'll put it out there like we did last time, asking them to answer those two questions.
Sure.
So we need a timeline of when you would like those mapped.
What do you guys think, a couple of weeks?
Kind of like the 4th, so then we have the whole week before the 11th, is on the time.
Well, we may want to do a special meeting before.
Or you wanna have them here by the 11th possibly?
Yeah.
You got 15 days, is that right, Johnny? Is it 15 days?
15 days would be the January 1st, right? January 1st?
Yeah, this notice will go into Kansas, I believe, on Thursday. We can't get it in for tomorrow's paper, but we can get it in for Thursday's paper, so it's 15 days from then, which is basically January 1st. So sometime the week of the 4th, we could have a special meeting to approve someone.
Okay. Well, why don't we just have it to us, what do you think?
The 1st and then meet on the 4th.
Yeah, we can have it on the 1st. Is that okay?
That would not give me a lot of time to pull it together and get information to you to have the deadline on Friday and meet next Monday. I mean, you might have it.
Yeah, 'cause that is a holiday.
It is a holiday.
Apologize. Could we bump it up a little bit? I'm looking at November, I don't even know what the day is. December 14th.
How much time do you need, Johnny?
Well, I was,
You want the 5th or the 6th?
No, I think actually we're gonna go early,
Or,
so she can get it before.
I was planning on taking vacation during Christmas, but I could come in and work on it if we have a deadline earlier. Or if you meet on the 5th, have a special meeting on the 5th, I could get everything to you on Monday the 4th. That doesn't give you very much time to review.
Okay, well, but when would you need them by to be able to do that?
If they submitted them by January 1st, then if I had them first thing Monday morning, it wouldn't take too long, I don't think, to get that information out to you.
Okay, so January 1st then?
To her, January 1st,
If you don't meet on, yeah.
and then a special meeting on the 5th?
Yeah,
Special meeting on the 5th?
Yeah, the 5th or the 6th.
Yeah.
that's fine. That's okay with me. Is that okay with everybody? Okay.
Sounds good.
Yep. All right.
So the 5th at 7?
Is that okay with everybody?
do you wanna schedule that now, or do you and Joni maybe wanna make sure everything comes in and do all of that? Or it might
Well, we
be 6
can-
or 6.
Yeah, I think pushing a deadline up for applications through the holidays is gonna be, I don't know, maybe those kinds of people to even think about this.
Do you wanna do it on the 6th then for a special meeting?
That would be great, yeah.
That'll give us a little more wiggle room. Okay, let's do the special meeting on the 6th at 7. Is that okay? Don't speak up.
Yeah, for sure. Yep.
Okay, so that's what we'll do. All right, awesome. Now we go back, board comments. I get to say thank you, Jim. Thank you for your years of service and being in the trenches with me for several years. I appreciate it greatly. You've served us well. Thank you. And with that, I'll take a motion.
I move to adjourn.
Moved and seconded, all in favor? 6-0.
Merry Christmas, folks.